Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the SQL. SQL as a technology is not new, it has been there for at least 50 years. But still, if you look around, it's still relevant, it's still very impactful. The impact is so huge that in the world of RDBMS there is no competition of SQL, but even in the NoSQL world, in the cloud databases, many of the databases are supporting these days the SQL based queries to go and query the data itself. So in the today's world, whether you are a software developer, you are a data analyst, you are a data scientist, there's a very high chance that you have to be aware of these SQL queries. In this video, we'll get started and we'll talk about the different types of probable queries that we have to run for the select type of queries and for the join queries. These are the questions that we're going to discuss, which has a high probability of coming in the interviews and very much similar to the problem that you're solving every day in your company itself. I've curated these questions from the LeetCode 50 SQL problems, and in this multi-part video series, in this first part, we'll focus on the questions and the queries related to the select and the join. So let's get started. Perfect. So now let's get started. As you can see here, it is a leetcode.com and it has SQL 50, right? And it's totally planned, customized so that you can go and crack the SQL interviews. It is especially helpful for the people who are trying to become a software developers. And let's say that the company is working in RDBMS, they might ask you this question. If you come from the data analytics or the data scientist, definitely it's going to be super help. So make sure that you're watching from the start till the end and you're not missing this challenge and you're doing this challenge yourself. The ideal way to do is that if you know SQL, pause the video here, try to read the problem statement with me, write your own code, and only if you're not able to answer that or submit that successfully, you go and look at the solution that I'm discussing. But do take care of practicing it with me. Let's get started. So let's start with the very first problem, which is the question. Let me go and click on the start. And I'll just say that, I commit to solve 10 problems because that's what the max I can do, and I go and confirm that. Perfectly fine. And now what I do is that let's start solving the problem. So let's start with the first problem, and it says that recyclable and the low fat products. Okay, this is my SQL schema. This is the column name and the type, product ID, low fats, recyclable, int enum. Product ID is the primary key. So few important things that we come here is that this, if you see here, this column will be my primary key. Perfect. With the unique values for this table, low fat is an enum, a category of the type Y and N, right? So this can only have the two values. It can have the value of I or it can have the value of N. Perfect. Recyclable is an enum of type Y and N. Okay, so this is also of the type Y or N. So an item could be recyclable or it cannot be a recyclable. Means the product is similar. Perfect. Now let's talk about the question. So we have understood the simple table. This table has three columns. Product ID is the primary key. Low fats and recyclable are those which are enums and the possible values are only two, either yes or no. Now I come down, write a solution to find the IDs of the product that are both low fat and recyclable. So I have to go and find all the products, right? I have to go and find all the products and I have to print their IDs that are both low fat and recyclable. So basically in this case what I see, I have to go and add a filter, or I can say that I should have a where clause where the low fat should be also Y and the recyclable should be also Y. Return the result table in any order. So there is no ordering which is needed. The result format is in the following example. So let's say that if this is my product table, my output should only contain the product ID wala column, and then it will have the values 1, 3, it will give me the product IDs, and only those product IDs whose low fat value and recyclable is both true. So for example, for 1 I see this is both true, for 3 I go and see they are both true. Other elements are not coming because either it is a low fat, it is not a low fat, or either it is not recyclable. Looks very simple. I think we can just go and make use of where clause. You can just pause the video, try to write this query, submit it, and if not, then just go and follow along. So I have this table. What do I go and write? I can just simply go and call here as select, and I go and call it as product underscore ID from the table name is products, right? And then I have to write the where clause. What is where clause? Where low underscore fats value should be equals to yes. And I also go and say that boss, recyclable, let me use the right spelling. If I go and bring this little here, recyclable is, let me put this down, and recyclable, put this here. I think it will be more readable if I go and bring it here. And recyclable is equals to yes. If that is the case, then I'll go and get all these product IDs. Let's try to go and run this. So let's try to go and run this one. Accepted. Let's try to go and submit it and see if it works. Perfect. So my first solution has been accepted. Very nice. Let's try to move to the next problem statement. So let's move to the next problem statement. So now the next one is the find customer reference, right? Let's go and click on this. Now let's try to understand and read the problem statement. Find customer referee. Okay. It is saying that boss, this is your table, very simple table that I have right now. Again, I have a table which has 3 columns: ID, name, and referee ID. The ID is the primary key, so this one is the primary key. Okay. Each row of this table indicates the ID of a customer, their name, and the ID of the customer who referred them. So this refers the ID of the customer who referred them. Very nice. Find the name of the customer that are not referred by the customer with the ID equals to 2. So from this table, I have to find all those customers who has not been referred by the customer with the ID 2. Very simple question. Again, it is the use of the where clause only. And what is the where clause? The where clause is that ID should not be equals to 2. And how the result has to be returned? The return has to be result in the following order. So if this is the input table, then I should go and return just the names. I just have to go and return the names. Very nice. So let's try to go and write the code for this. So very simple, again, like the previous question itself. I just go and call it as select name boss, and from customer, name of the table is customer, right? Customer, where what I go and do, I go and say that referee underscore ID not equals to 2. This is only it has been said, right? It has said that find the name of the customer that are not referred by the customer ID. So I'm saying that referee ID should not be equals to 2. Let's try to run this and see if it works. Now it says that it is case 1, wrong answer. Now what is this case 1? Let's try to see this. So in this case, referee ID is not equals to 2. Select name from the customer, referee ID is not equals to 2. It's not getting the answer. Output, I got this jack. Okay. Now what is the challenge here? Can you guys think of? So when I go and check the numerical values, too, it printed this, but it should have also printed this, this, and this, the places where it is not set, right? So what I do in that case is that I go and call it as or, right? I go and call it as or, and I go and call it as referee underscore ID is null, something like this. So if I go and now run this and see if it works. Okay, I have a typo here. It should be referee. Let's try to run this. And I see that now it is accepted. Let's try to go and submit this. and it got accepted. Perfect, very nice. Perfect, let's move to the next question. Agla question, the next question is big countries, right? So in this table, comparatively now I have got a little bigger table because last two tables, the last two questions have been very small. This table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Fair enough. So this is my table schema. If I go further down, it is saying that name in this case, which is a varchar type column, this is my primary key. Fair. Each row of this table gives information about the name of a country, the continent to which it belongs, the area, the population, and its GDP value. Fair enough. So I have understood this data. Now if I go down, a country is big if it is an area of at least 3 million square kilometers. Okay. Or it has a population of at least 25 million people. Okay, boss. So there are two definitions of a country being big. Either it has a huge population, it should be at least having 25 million folks, or its area should be at least 3 million square kilometer. Write a solution to find the name, population and area of the big countries. So basically again what I'll have to do, very similar thing, we'll have to write a where clause and I have to see that either the area should be greater than or equals to 3 million square kilometers or the population should be at least 25 million. If I'm able to do this, then I'll be able to go and find the big country, right? And if I go down, let's try to see the format in which I have to get the answer. So if I scroll down, if this is my input table for the world, then the output should have the name, population and the area. Fair enough. I'll just keep this screen itself. Very simple and straight. I'll quickly go and write the code for this. So select query for the where clause. What I go and say that, I go and say that select name. Okay, boss. I go and say that select name. Then I go and call it as population. And then I go and say that area. Fair. And from, what is the name of the table? The name of the table is world, right? Where I go and say that area is greater than equals to, how much was the definition? Was greater than equals to 3000 square kilometers. Or what is my population? Population is greater than equals to 25 million. Let me go and copy this. Greater than equals to this value. If that is the case, then I should go and get all the answers here. So if I go and run this, I see there's an error. Check the manual. Now why it is? Because there's a typo. I'll not go and edit it out because that's a normal genuine thing that happen when you go and write the code. So I'm just keeping it because I'm trying to write it scratch. I don't edit it out. This has been accepted in 5 milliseconds. Let's try to go and run this code. This is running in 85 seconds. I should have submitted actually. LeetCode is slow sometimes. Let me go and submit this. Perfectly fine. I have been able to write the code and it has perfectly got submitted. Now let's go back and move to the next question. Article view 1. Article view 1, typically again I got the table structure here. Schema says that this table has 4 columns. It has article ID, author ID, viewer ID and view data. There is no primary key. The table may have the duplicate rows. Very nice. So it has no primary key. One point to understand is that most of the time I have seen students, professional in the interview, when I go and ask this question, is primary key mandatory? Everybody says yes. So it's not mandatory. There are tables in which there can be no primary key, in which there is a high probability of duplicate rows. Each row of this table indicates that some viewer viewed an article written by some author on some date. So basically every entry in this table is indicating a record which talks about that who read which article. Fair? Note that equal author ID and viewer ID indicate the same person. The author ID and the viewer ID are equal, then it indicates the same person. Very nice, because the same author and the viewer is the same one. Write a solution to find all the authors that viewed at least one of their own articles. Write a solution to find all the authors that viewed at least one of their articles. So basically this is a table which contains a record of the people watching the work of the other authors. So I have to get the list of all the authors who have checked their own articles at least once, and all those author who does it, I have to go and find their list. Return the result set by sorted by ID. So here again another important thing that we have to keep on my mind is that we have to sort it by ID in ascending order. So the result has to be sorted, that too in the ascending order. The result format is in the following example, right? So let's go and see what format it is. So let's say that it is a views table. So article ID, author ID, viewer ID, and the view date. And output is the ID. So ID is basically of the typically the author who has done his own views, right? This is how it should go and look like. Since I have to only go and present the ID, what I can do here is that I can go and call it as select, and let me go and call it author ID as simply ID, because I have to give the alias. I am trying to give a name called alias from the table which is views, from views. Okay, and now I have to go and write the right from author ID is ID from views, where I go and say that viewer underscore ID is greater than or equals to 1 and author underscore ID is equals to viewer underscore ID. Fair enough. And now since it can have the duplicate record, the author ID might appear multiple times, so I have to make it distinct. So what I go and do here, I go and use a keyword here called as distinct. This is very nice. And all of this has to be ordered by the ID, first, fourth, then seventh. So I have to go and do the order by. So I go and say that order by, and I go and call it as author underscore ID. So what I'm trying to say, I'm doing, if you go and look around, I'm saying, boss, this is the condition. So whenever the viewer ID and author ID are same and viewer ID value is greater than or equals to 1, then what I have to do, I have to go and print the author ID, and since it has to be distinct, so I'm making a keyword called as distinct. And since it has to be ordered based on the author ID, so I've done order by author ID. By default, it is ascending only. If I had to do the descending order, I should have written DSC. Now let's try to run this and see if it works. If I go and click on this run button, it works fine. Runtime is 83 milliseconds. If I go and click on the submit, it should directly go and accept my submission. Perfect. So it has taken my submission. Now let's try to move to the next question. If I come back here again, last question of this select series, which is invalid tweets. Let's go and click on it. Invalid tweets. So this question says that, boss, I have a table, simple table it looks like, man. And what is this table? If I look around, so right now this has two tables, tweet ID and the content. This is the table name. Tweet ID is the primary key. So this table has a primary key. So each row is unique. Column with the unique values. Content consists of alphanumeric characters. Tweet ID is the primary key. Column with the unique values for this tuple. Content consists of the second one. This is the second column. This comprises of alphanumeric characters. So it will have the special characters, space and all the other. And in the alphanumeric character, it means that it will have alphabets from A to Z, capital A to capital Z, 0 to 9, and only these two special characters, exclamatory and empty space. Fair. Not this one. Okay. And no other special characters. Fair enough. This table contains all the tweets in a social media app. This table contains all the tweets in a social media app. Fair enough. Write a solution to find the IDs of the invalid tweets. The tweet is invalid if the number of characters used in the content of the tweet is greater than 5. So let's say this social media has put up a rule that tweet should not be more than 50. So any tweet which is invalid, which has the number of characters more than 15, then it is touted as an incorrect tweet. Return the result table in any order. So there is no ordering needed. The result format is in the following example. Let's try to understand that format. I go down. It is a tweet table. Output is only tweet ID. And this is what I have to go and represent. So since this is the only thing has to be presented, again a classic case of select statement, I go and say that select, and I go and call it as tweet underscore ID, right? From table call as tweets. Fair enough. and then where I go and say that where, and this is a content, right? So to know the number of characters of a column which is of type var arg, we use a method called as a length, a function called as an inbuilt function called as a length. So I can call it as a length and pass in content. And if I say there, boss, if it is greater than 15, then these are the invalid tweet IDs. Let's try to go and run this. If I go and run this, I got my case accepted. If I go and click on the submit, this works perfectly fine. Cool. So with this, our first category of the questions, right? All the select queries we have been able to do pretty well. All these questions we have been able to do it. I hope if you have been trying with me, you have been able to do it yourself. Please put that into the comments and say yes, that if I am done myself all alone. Now once it is done, now let's try to move around the joins. The next set of the concept that we have to go and apply and solve the questions around are the joins. Let me go and close all this tab now so that it doesn't look more cluttered right now. So joins. What is basically joins? If I do a quick revision of yours, joins are basically when you have to combine two or more tables. When the data is within the two or more tables, and if you want to combine the data from these two tables to get some meaningful result, that's where you go and make use of the basic joins. You would have learned about inner join, outer join, left join, right joins. Let's try to see in action with these examples that how do we go and solve the problems of joins here. So let's start with the very first problem which is there on the screen right now. Let's click on the first one, which is replace employee ID with the unique identifier, right? So this is the table that we have in the hand right now. The table that I have the column names ID and the name. This is a small table with two fields. ID is the primary key, fair enough. And each row of this table contains the ID and the name of the employee in a company. So this is the table 1, right? This is the employees table. If it is a join, there has to be multiple tables. So that's how, if I go down, I have another table which comes on the screen, which is the employee UNI or unique ID. This is another table which is saying that in this case it is a composite primary key. Both ID and unique ID is the primary key, combination of column with the unique values for this table. Each row of this table contains the ID and the corresponding unique ID of the employee in the table. Fair enough. Perfect. So this ID underscore unique ID is the primary key, is the combination, the composite key, right? Write a solution to show the unique ID of each user. Okay. Let me go and open my descriptable. Write a solution to show the unique ID of each user. If a user does not have a unique ID, replace just show null. Okay. Return the result table in any order. The result format is in the following example. So let's try to see first for the result example. I have this employee table. I have this employee UNI table, ID and the unique ID. Output is unique ID and the name. Okay. And for any given name, if there is no unique ID, I should go and replace it with the null. Right. So basically, if I have to get this data, if you see here, I'm interested in the name and I'm interested in the unique ID. These are present in two different tables. So I have to go and relate these two tables. And how these two are related? They are related for the common column, which is ID, which is in both the tables. So whenever such situation happens, you have data in multiple tables, there has to be some common relations between these two, and then you can go and form the join. Now in this table has all employees, and this table might have few employee IDs for which there is no unique ID, So I want to make sure that I want to keep every record, every name from this and all the matching records from this table, right? I have to make every record from the first one and take from the second one. So for that, I'll have to do which kind of join? Can you guys make a guess? Which kind of join should I go and do this? So let's say that this is the left table, this is my left table, and this is my right table. I have to keep every record of the left and only the matching records from the right. Such kind of situation is called as a left join. Let's try to quickly go and write the code for this now. So if I have to go and do the left join here, I'll go and write code here as, I'll go and say that select unique underscore ID. What all things that I have to go and print? I have to print unique ID and then I have to go and print name. Very nice. From, I have to take the first of all the left table name. So let me go and call it as employees. Let me copy this and paste it as employees E. And then I go and say that left join and I go and call it as employee UNI. This is another table. And let me go and call it as EU. And for doing the join, I go and call on and I go and say that e.id should be equals to eu.id. Fair enough. I am saying that select unique ID name, right? I have to select these two, right? Now these two are not present in a single table, so I have to form what a join. So what is happening in this form clause? If you go and see that, if you look around this whole thing, when I go and do this, this kind of creates data combined from two different tables from which I can go and get the unique ID and I go and get the name. Let's try to run this and see if it works. If I go and click on the run now, it has been accepted. If I go and click on the submit button, this should work. Fair enough. So we have written the first join code. Normally I've seen when you go in industry, you have to write a join code. You're always feeling intimidated. This is simple, boss. Straight. I hope this is clear to you and you have been able to write this solution of this problem yourself. Please comment in the chat if you are able to solve this first join problem. Let's move to the next one. In the next one, what I have is, let's be here, product sales analysis. Let me go and click on this. Okay. Now, I have a sales table here, okay, which are the sales ID, product ID, year, quantity, and the price. Sale ID and year is the primary key here in this case. So in this case, if I go and look around, the sale ID and year, these two things is the primary key. Fair. Combination column is the unique values of this table. Product ID is a foreign key. So basically this might be connected to another table. This is a foreign key right now. Okay. And then I have something called as quantity and the price. So this is basically sales information, that what is the sale ID, product ID, year, quantity, and the price at which you have done the sale. Each row of this table contains a sale on the product ID in a certain year. Note that the price is in the per unit. Fair enough. So all the sales related data will be in this table. There's another table called as product, which is the product ID and the product name. Fair enough. Cool. Product ID is the primary key here. Fair enough. And the primary, this product table and the sales table are connected with the help of something called as a product ID. So common between these two tables, product ID. Write a solution to report the product name, year, and price. So product name is in the product table. Year and price is in the another table, which is the sales table. For each sale ID in the sales table. So here again, I have to get everything from the sales table. So all the sales table has to be present, and for which there's some record in the case of the product table itself, right? So if I go and look here, this is my sales table. This is my sales table. This is my product table. Output has to have the product name. This comes from the product table. This year and the price comes from the previous table, which is the sales table. So I have to do the join. And everything which is in the sales table has to come in, so it has to be the left join itself again, right? So I go and write here select, let me write here, I go and call it as select, and I go and call it as product name. Copy kar lete hain. Let's go and copy this product underscore name, and then I go and call this year, and then I go and call it as price. From, let me go and call it as a product. From first one is the sales, right? From sales, you need to give it a nickname of S, and I go and call it as left join, and then I go and call it as a right, which is the product table, product P, on S dot product underscore ID is equals to P dot product underscore ID. Fair enough. So you go and run this. What I've done, I have joined these two tables, right? So this is the join criteria, right? If you go and see here, I've done a left join between the sales and the product table. So everything from the sales table and then everything which is matching in the product. So if I go and do this with the help of a Venn diagram, then let's say that this is S and this is P, then everything which is this portion is called as a left join. So all the records which is there in the S table and all the records which is matching, intersecting between S and P will be the part of it. So if I go and run this, so if I go and run this, fair enough. Let's try to go and run this. Perfect. Let me go and click on the submit, and I'll hopeful that it should be accepted. Perfect, fine. So I have been able to submit this solution. Let's move to the next problem. So let's go back. This is the second one. Let's talk around customer who visited but did not make any transaction. Very important, especially in the today's modern sales based systems. You have to be very sure that who visited but didn't make any transaction. Fair enough. So let's try to analyze this. So I have a table called as visits, which has two columns, visit ID and the customer ID. Very nice. And then visit ID is the column with the unique values for this table. So basically this might be acting like a primary key because this is unique. However, it is not very strictly mentioned that it is a primary key that has been defined, but it is unique. So every row could be a unique one. And then I have a transaction table in which there is a transaction ID. There's a visit ID and their amount. So if you go and see the top and the bottom, if you go and try to see the top and the bottom, what is the common link between these two tables? The visit ID. I have a visit ID in the first table also, and similarly if I go down, then again in the bottom also in this table transaction also I have something called as a visit ID. I have the visit ID in both the tables. Transaction ID is the column with the unique values. Fair enough. This is a primary key in this case. This can be a primary key in this table. The table contains information about the transaction made during the visit underscore ID. Fair enough. Then what is the question? The question says that write a solution to find the IDs of the user who visited without making any transaction. Okay. And the number of times they made these types of visits. It means that I have to write a solution to find the IDs of the user who visited without making any transaction. So basically this record will be present in the visits table but will not be present in the transaction table because they have not done the transaction, right? And once that is done, then I have to also do some kind of aggregation. I have to go and say the number of times they made these types of visits. Return the result table sorted in any order. The result format is in the following example. Fair enough. Good, interesting question. So I have this table called as visit ID and the customer ID. So it will have all the visit ID, those who have done the transaction, those who have not done the transaction. And this will only have those records of visit IDs who have actually done the transaction. So if I go and remove these visit IDs from this, if I go and remove this, then I'll go get those visit IDs which have not done any kind of transaction. And then for each of the visit ID, I have to do the aggregation that how many times they have visited. Very nice. So let's try to go and run this code. So what I can do is that first of all, let me go and write here. So output, let's try to see what are the columns that I have to go and so I have to go and so customer ID and customer count of number of transactions, count of no transactions, right? So I go and say that select, and I go and call it as customer underscore ID, and then I have count underscore no underscore trans, right? From now, in order to do this, right, because this is the count, I have to do some kind of aggregation, right? So I have to write some kind of aggregation function. So I go and say that count star. So we'll just go and count the number of records, how many times the customer ID has appeared, count star as count no trans from, and the second call is from, and I go and call it as the first table is visits, and then I go and say that where, and visit underscore ID not in, and I go and add the inner query. Let me go and call it as select, and let me go and call not in, and I go and call it as select distinct, and I go and call it as visit underscore ID from transactions, and then I have to go and do the group by customer ID. Fair enough. So here, if you see in this question, this is not a direct join that I have applied, right? So what I'm doing is, the question was saying that, boss, I have to go and find all the visit IDs, all the customers in this table who visited, but there's no record in this transaction ID. So if I go and find all the visit IDs, and I go and negate all the visit IDs from here, I can go and find that count, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to print what? I'm trying to print customer ID, and then how many times this customer ID has appeared in this table when the visit ID is not in the visit IDs which is present in the transaction. Let's need to go and run this and see if it works. Let me go and click on the run. It works fine. If I go and click on the submit, ideally you should get submitted. Perfectly fine, it got submitted. Very nice. Let's move back to the next question, which is rising temperature. So this question number 197, it says that, boss, you have one table which is weather, and it has 3 columns: ID, record date, and temperature. Fair enough. ID is the column with the unique value for this table. Okay, there are no different rows with the same recorded data. Perfect. This table contains information about the temperature of a certain day. Write a solution to find all dates with higher temperature compared to the previous dates. Okay, so I have only one table, right? Each row is unique. It is trying to say that find all the dates ID with the higher temperature compared to the previous date yesterday. So whenever the temperature of a day is more than the previous day, I have to go and print all those dates ID. Okay, understood. Let's try to see in what output format I would like to get this data. So for example, here you see, since the record date to the temperature is more than the 10, so I should go and have this ID. Next day is not more, so I have not included this 10. Next day 30 is more than the previous one, so I go and provide this 2 and the 4. Fair enough. So how do I go and do this? Let's try to go and see how that it works. So I go and call it here. So I have to go and provide select, and I go and call it as w1.id. w1 is the nickname that we'll go and give to the table, right? So I go and say that from weather w1, and then I take another weather w2, right? Where, and I go and call it as dated date diff w1 dot record date comma w2 dot record date is equals to 1, and w1 dot temperature is greater than w2 dot temperature. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to do the join with the same table, boss, right? Same table. So I'm saying that I have to go and provide the ID, right? So w1.id, I can go, I can name it also as ID. I can leave it as it is because it will just go and print ID from weather, and then weather, and I say that where date difference, the difference between the dates is only 1 for the between the two dates, and the temperature of the w1 dot temperature is more than w2 dot temperature. If that is the case, then I should go and print all those IDs. Let's try to see, and if it works, if I go and click on this run button, it is accepted. Let me go and click on the submit, and it works all great. Let's move to the next question. average time of process per machine. Let's click on this. So far so good. I think things are pretty easy, simple question that we have been solving so far. Average time of process per machine. This is the next question, right? It has a table called as an activity and it has the following columns. It has the column called as the machine ID, process ID, activity type and the timestamp. Okay, machine ID, process ID, activity type and the timestamp. These are the 4 columns. Type is int, enum and float. Okay. The table shows the user activities for a factory website. The table shows the user activities for a factory website. Machine ID, process ID, activity type and the timestamp. Fair enough. Now in this case, machine ID, process ID and activity type, all these 3 together forms a composite primary 3. All these 3 columns together forms a composite primary key of this table. Machine ID is the ID of the machine. Process ID is the ID of a process running on the machine with ID, machine ID, and activity type is the enum category of the type start end. Fair enough. Activity type is an enum and it can only have the 2 values, which is start or it has the value called as a enum. Fair enough. Timestamp is a float representing the current time in the seconds. Okay, float value is the current time in the seconds. Okay, start means the machine start the process at the given timestamp, and end means that the machine ends the process at the given timestamp. The start timestamp will always be before the end timestamp for every machine ID process ID pair. It is guaranteed that each machine ID process ID pair has a start and an end timestamp. Okay, this is also, so every machine which got started also got stopped. This is guaranteed with the dataset that we have in the hand right now. Fair enough. Now we go move further. There is a factory website that has several machines each running the same number of processes. While a solution to find the write a solution to find the average time each machine takes to complete a process. Let's try to understand this line. There's a factory website that has several machines each running the same number of process. Write a solution to find the average time each machine takes to complete a process. The time to complete a process is the end timestamp minus the start timestamp. The average time is calculated by the total time to complete every process on the machine divided by the number of processes that we go and run. So for example, in a machine, if I have run 10 processes, so the average time to complete all the 10 processes will be the total time divided by the 10. Fair enough. The resulting table should have the machine ID along with the average time as the processing time, which should be rounded to 3 decimal places. Return the result table in any order. The result format is in the following example. Okay, machine ID, process ID, activity type, timestamp, and then I should have machine ID and the processing time. This is the average processing time. So what I have to do is that for each machine ID, right, for a given process ID, I have to go and find how many unique process IDs are there so that I know that a machine runs how many times. And for each of the process ID, what is the total duration? Total duration. And then I have to sum total or the duration divided by the count of processes. If I go and do this something, I will be able to get what I'm trying to achieve, right? Fair enough. So what I go and do here is, let me go and write. So I have to write the machine ID. So let me go and call it as select machine underscore ID, comma, I have to also go and pass the processing time. So that has to be rounded over 3 times, right? I go down. It is written that it should be rounded to the 3 decimal places, right? It has to be rounded by the 3 decimal places. 3 decimal places, right? So I have to use a round function for this. So what I go and write here, let me go and take this left again. I go and call this as round, LOROUND round, and then I have to take the average of end minus start times, right, comma, and this should be rounded off to the 3, and this should be stored as processing underscore time, right? This is what I want to go and print. So let me go and copy this as processing underscore time. Fair enough. Okay, and then from, and for this I need to go and create a subquery. Let me go and call it as subquery, and then I have to go and do the group by machine IDs, right? I have to go and do the group by the machine ID. Now the key part here is that go and define this subquery, right? So I have to go and define a subquery here so that I'm able to go and fetch this machine ID and this processing time. right? So for this I have to go and create a table using the subqueries here. So what I go and write, I go and call it as select machine underscore id, right? And then I have something called as a process underscore id, right? And then what I go and do, I go and say that max, and I go and say that case when activity equal to underscore type is equals to start, right? Then I go and take the timestamp, and this is the case, right? And then again I go and do the same thing, as start, and let me copy this, paste it here. When activity start type is equals to end, then timestamp end it, and then as end. And then what I'll have to do, I'll have to go and do the as end, and from the table which is called as, this is information is present in this table, right? In the table from activity, and then I go and do that group by, and this has to be group by machine id and process underscore id, right? Add subquery by the machine id. Now let's try to go and run this and see if it works. We're going to click on this, it is accepted. If I go and click on the submit, let's see if it is accepted. Yes, it has been accepted. Perfectly fine. Let's try to move to the next problem and try to solve the next one. The next one is the employee bonus, also of the type category easy. Let's go and click on this. Now if you look around the employee bonus table, right, this is a table called as employee. This has the column name and the column time. The first employee table has the columns employee ID, name, supervisor, and the salary. All the information about the employees are here. Great. If I go and move down, it says that employee ID is a column with the unique values for this table. So this might act like a primary key because it has a unique values. Each row of this table indicates the name and the ID of the employee, in addition to their salary and the ID of their manager. All the information is present here. Perfectly fine. This is cool. Now there is another table called as bonus, right? It indicates that what is the employee ID and what is the bonus that he has got. Employee ID is the column of the unique values for this table. Employee ID is a foreign key reference to the employee ID from the employee table, right? This is the common connection. If you see here also there is an employee ID. And if I go and scroll up the previous table, which is employee table, here also I have an employee ID. So this is the common connection between these two tables. If I have to go and do a join some relationship, this is how I can go and do it. Write a solution to report the name and bonus of amount of each employee with the bonus less than 1000. So what I have to do, I have to extract the employee name here, and I have to go and extract the bonus from here, and I have to only represent the bonuses when the bonus is less than 1000, right? So I have to get the data from both the tables, and I have to put a condition where the bonus is less than 1000. The result format is in the following example. I have the name and the bonus. Perfectly fine. So basically I have to get the data from both the tables. I have to get the intersection of both of them, right? So let's try to go and write here the query. So I go and write select name. I have to get bonus from, and I go and call it as which table? Employee E, and then I go and say that left join bonus B on E dot MP underscore ID is equals to B dot AMP ID, not underscore, it has to be in the camel case as it is there, right? And then I have to go and write the condition where bonus is less than 1000 or bonus is null. It is not at all, right? This time I have not committed that mistake. In the first of the problems, if you remember, I missed this condition, that's why it was giving me the error. So I learned from that mistake, and here I have not done that. So now if I go and click on the run button, I see that it has been accepted. Let me go and click on the submit, and I'm hoping that this solution will also be successfully submitted. Perfectly fine. So it has been accepted. I have beaten 89.2% of the people who have written the same query. Now let's move back and move to the next question, which is students and examinations. Let's see that what it is. So students and examination, let's try to see that. I have a table called as a students. Okay. And the students table has two columns, student ID and student name. Student ID is of type int and student name is of type varchar. Student ID is the primary key. So this is my primary key, boss. Perfect. Each row of this table contains the ID and the name of the student in the school. Good. So I have the student ID and student name. Then I have another table called as the subjects, which are the subject name varchar. Perfect. Subject name is the primary key in the unique values for this table. Each row of this table contains the name of the subject in the school. Okay, this is subject table. Then I have one more table, which is examination. So I have the subject table, I have the student table, and then I also have an examination table. Strange. Okay. And in the examination table, I have the student and the subject mapping. Okay. So examination has a student and examination detail. Then I have a student detail, which is student and the student name. And then I have a subject, which is the subject details. Okay. There are no primary keys column with the unique values for this table. It may contain duplicates. So now there is no primary key in this examination table for this table. It may contain duplicates. Perfectly fine. Because the student ID and the same subject, they can give the multiple times the examination. That's perfectly fine. Each subject from the student table takes each student from the student tables take every course from the subject table. Each row of this table indicates that the student with the student ID attended the exam of the subject name. Fair enough. Write a solution to find the number of times each student attended each examination. I have to go and write a solution to find the number of times each student attended each examination. Means that a student can attend an examination multiple times. Return the result table ordered by the student ID and the student name. So it has to be an ordering. There has to be an ordering. Fair enough. Let's try to see the example. So in this case, I have a students table, which are the student related information. I have the subject table, which are the subject related information. And then I have an examination table where the information about the student ID and the subject, right? So this will have the information that is, info about exam. Okay, this is cool. Now if I go further down, my final output should have the information student ID and student name. This comes from the student table. Subject name, this comes from the subject table and also from the examination table. And how many, and this also might also come from the examination table. And how many times the exams the students attended, right? So for example, Alice attended maths 3 times. Alice attended physics twice. Okay. So basically what I'll have to do is I'll have to, because these two information, student ID and this is information available in the examination table. So I'll have to do the join between these two. And then I will have to do some kind of aggregation to find the count. Fair enough. So let's try to write the code here. So I get the, let me go and write here. So let me go and call it as select a dot student underscore ID because it comes from the student table. Then I go and say a dot student underscore name, and let me go and call it b dot subject underscore name, and then I have count of c dot subject underscore name as attended underscore exams. Okay, as attended as exams. So basically if you see here, I have A, B and C, so I have 3 tables. Right, so I'm trying to do the join between the relationship between the 3 tables are there, 3 tables relationship. right? Great, cool. This I have done, and then I'll go and say that from students A, and then I go and say that join, and then I go and call it as subjects B, and then I go and say that left join examination. So student A join, this B has been the left join. So frequently I'm trying to do the join between A and the joining result of B and the C, right? So left join examination C on what I want to say that on A dot student underscore ID is equals to C dot student underscore ID, and B dot student underscore name is equals to C dot B dot subject underscore name is equals to C dot subject underscore name group by 1, 3 and then order by 1, 3, right? So if I go and run this, now I have A on A dot student underscore ID equals to C dot student underscore ID, right? Join. Okay, I think I should have written join subjects B, and I have to write left join. I don't know how it got deleted. Left join examination, and then I want to say that C. If I go and run this now, and where examinations, I think it should be examinations. If I go and run this, I'm purposely not editing it out. I just want to make sure that I'm doing it very raw live, so that whatever the error is coming, you are also able to see this. If I go and click submit, it has been submitted. Now let's try to move to the next question, which is managers with least 5 direct reports. It's a medium level. I think it seems to be a good problem. Let's go and click on this. Manager with at least 5 direct reports. So I have this table called as employee, which has ID, name, department, and manager ID. So this has the ID also, and it also has the manager ID also. Perfect. I have a table that is there in place. ID is the primary key. Very nice. Each row of this table indicates the name of an employee, the department, and their ID of their manager. If the manager ID is null, then the employee does not have any manager. So it is also possible that an employee does not have any kind of manager. No employee will be the manager of themselves. No one can manage themselves. That's perfectly fine. The next question is, write a solution to find the managers with at least 5 direct reportees. So again, I have to do a self-join kind of situation here, because I have only one table, and that table also has information about the manager IDs and also the employees. So I have to find those manager IDs which have at least 5 direct reportees to them, right? So this is what I have to go and write the code. For example, if I go and look here, this manager ID 101 has appeared how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has at least 5 reportees. So I'll go and answer the output as John, right? So output should only have the name of the person who have at least 5 direct reportees, right? At least 5 direct reportees. This is a constant, hard constant that has been put here. Cool, sir. So now let's try to go and write the code for this. So what I'm going to do here is, now it's a medium level, but I don't think it's a simple question. I go and call it as select a dot name from, and we can call it as employee A, join employee B, fair enough, where A dot ID equals to B dot manager ID, and then I go into the group by, and I go and call it as B dot manager ID, ID with the condition as having count star, and this should be equals to greater than equals to 5. If I go and run this, let's see if it works. If I go and run this, yeah, it ran. Let me go and click on the submit and see if it gets submitted or not. Perfect. So I've beaten 91.77% of the people in this. Cool. Let's move to the last question of this basic joins, and with that we'll try to end our video today. So please pay attention. We are almost hearing end. So now let me go and click on this confirmation rate. The confirmation rate, what is that? It is saying that I have a table called as signups. Okay, and it has two information. It has information on the user ID. It has the information on the timestamp. Okay, int and date time. This is the table, user ID, timestamp. User ID is the column of the unique values for this table. So it might be a primary key. Each row contains information about the sign up time for the user with the user ID, user underscore ID. Okay. Then I have another table which is the confirmations, which is the table user ID, timestamp and the action. Okay. Action is of the enum type. User ID, timestamp is the primary key, combination of columns with the unique values for this table. User ID is the foreign key to the sign up table. User ID is the foreign key to the sign ups table. Okay. Action is an enum category of the type confirm timeout. Each row of this table indicates that the user with ID, user ID requested a confirmation message at the timestamp, and that confirmation message was either confirmed or expired without confirming timeouts. Okay. Okay. The confirmation rate of a user is the number of confirmed messages divided by the total number of requested confirmation messages. Fair enough. What is the confirmation rate? Let's try to go and underline this. The confirmation rate of a user is the number of confirmed messages divided by the total number of requested confirmation messages. The confirmation rate of a user that did not request any confirmation messages, 0. Round the confirmation rate to 2 decimal places. Round the confirmation rate to the 2 decimal places. Write a solution to find the confirmation rate of user. Write a solution to find the confirmation rate of each user. Return the result table in any order. The result format is in the following example. So basically I have two table boss. One is the sign up table, user ID and the timestamp which has signed up. Another one is the confirmation table, right? User ID, timestamp, and what is the action. This action values are confirmed or timed out, right? Now the question says that the confirmation rate of a user is the number of confirmed messages divided by total number of requested confirmation messages, because some of will time out. So the confirmation rate of a user is the total number of confirmed messages divided by the total number of the requested confirmation messages. The confirmation rate of a user that did not request any confirmation is 0. Round the confirmation rate to the 2 decimal places. So again I have to go and round it to the 2 decimal places. Write a solution to find the confirmation rate of the each user. Return the result table in any order. So obviously I have two tables, boss. One is the sign up table, which is in the beginning, which has the user ID, and then there's a table called as a confirmation where the user is setting up this action. Now if I go and combine these two table data, then only I'll be able to go and find the confirmation rate. What should be the output, right? So let's say this is the sign up table, this is the confirmation table. So if I go and look around, this is 7 user ID, and then this 7 has passed 3 times the actions confirmed, right? So confirmation rate will be so if I go and look around, confirmation rate of the 7 is 1. 3, the confirmation rate of the 3 would be 0. Yes, it is 0. The confirmation rate of the 2 will be, say, like for example 0.5. So I have to go and pass user ID and I have to go and provide the confirmation rate itself. Good. Let's try to go and write the code for this. So I'll have to go and write something like this. Select. This is a good question. I go and write select, and then I go and call it as s.user_id. That's number 1. The second field has to be rounded, so I can call it as round, and then I have to coalesce this, right? And then I go and call it as sum, and then I go and pass case when xn equals to confirmed, then 1 end. And once I do this, I divide it by count star, right, comma 0, and then this should be rounded to the two places, and as confirmation rate, confirmation underscore rate from signups as left join, and then I go and call it as confirmations C on s dot user underscore id equals to c dot user underscore id, and then I go and call as group by s dot user underscore id. Let's really go and run this and see if it works. Perfect, it has been accepted. What I did here, if I go and look into here, I'm saying that boss, I have called this sign up table called S, and between S and C I've done a left join on this field, right, and I'm grouping by this S user ID. And what I'm trying to do here is that I have to go and find the rate. So what I'll do is that I'll go and find the sum of all these values, then I go and find the average, and then I go and round it to the value of the 2 itself, right, and this I go and do by the group by. So this is how I go and find the rates of this. If I let me go and submit and see if it works, I go and click on submit. Perfectly fine. So this is working great for us. Fair enough, makes sense. Everyone is clear on this? Cool. So with this, sir, we have completed both the select type of queries and the joins kind of query. This is the part 1 of it. In the next part, we're going to talk about the remaining queries. So we go and talk about the aggregate functions. We still have to do the sorting and grouping related queries. We also have to go and do the advanced select and the joins queries. Post that, the subqueries, advanced string functions, a lot of queries has to go on. So I'll see you in the next video. With this, we have come to the end of this video. We have solved so many queries, select, join. I hope you had made sense. But yes, these queries are not for the beginners, at least not for those who just got started. So if you feel that you need a separate video and you want to learn things from the scratch, please put that into the comments, and then I'll put the detailed MySQL video on which I'll teach about RDBMS and all the SQL queries in details. Till then, if you like it, please put it in the comments, and if you are really enjoying it, you are having fun, you are making the most out of these videos, please feel free to share with at least 10 of your friends. Put your comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.